Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Uzi Alewi. I'm one of the teachers of congregation BINAH CHOKMAH, located in the Brooklyn section of New York City. Thanking the Most High God for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That'll be the Red Hook section of Brooklyn. I'm thankful to the Creator for my life and the life of Yisrael, the life of all of you. I pray that the Most High God will continue to be with each and every one of you, protect you, and guide you. An early Shabbat Shalom to all. Giving due respect to the leadership at Congregation Bay D.C.B, the spiritual leader of Bay D.C.B, my brother, Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaschar, that the Most High God continue to be with him and his family and his blessing and his family, and that he may bless them. Thanking the Creator for giving his wife another cycle around the sun, my sister Princess Shekinah, and thanking the Creator for all things and everything. I'm grateful to the Most High God for life and for all things that he does for us. And I pray that the Creator will continue to be with all of us and bless us. At this moment, we're going to move forward with what we've been doing for weeks, going over the Haftarah portions. And for that will be none other than one of my teachers, my mentor, even Nasik Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respects to the platform on D.C.B, Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaschar, spiritual leader there, the host Chief Uziel, to the princes, chiefs, rabbis, Korni, Mori, brothers and sisters. I greet you all in the tongue of my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and an early Shabbat Shalom. And I like to say, Adonai Septai Titakofi Yagi, Tilateaka, O Lord, open my lips, and my mouth should declare thy praise. I'll be talking about the Haftarah, Mishpatim, but normally in my normal style, I would always like to highlight some things that I didn't do when I was pretty much doing a particular sidra, because you never could finish any particular sidra in no one setting. This thing is something that you grow into. And it's not a graduate course, it's always a course that takes you through life. So that's one of the things, one of the glories about studying the Tanakh, and more so studying the law, statutes, and judgments that the Creator had sent through the prophet Moses, the lay before us. Now, I'd like to also bring about, there was a couple questions I've seen. That's all I seen was basically two from one sister. And one of the questions was, I think the first question, if I can remember offhand, I didn't write it down, was that how did Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, get there so quickly? After, did he come through the Yam Suf with them, or, did he, what was the case? How did he get there? Did he leave before him, or was meeting them there, whatever the case was? But we ourselves as Israelites, we stayed in Egypt. That's why I would start off with in explaining. We stayed in Egypt. We went into the Yam Suf, and like I said before, we made a U-turn. But in the beginning, the Creator had told Moses that he's not going to take him by the land of the Philistines, though it would be shorter, leastwise they see war and turn back. So they're taking a scenic route before they go there. And Mount Sinai, if we recall, in the beginning of Exodus, the Creator told Moses to bring him to the mount where he had that revelation at the bush, which was Mount Sinai. So that's in the vicinity of Midian. So it's not really a great journey from Midian to Mount Sinai. where Moses and the people was pretty much on their way to at that time. So that explains, and he heard the news, what happened, and heard how they got away and everything. So he made the trip that was easier for him than it was, for roughly 3 million people. And I say, because he had 600,000 men of war. Exact count, I believe, is 600,353, somewhere along that, give or take. But we know that in round number 600,000 men of war that's able to go to war, not counting women, children, and mixed multitude. So that's how I come up pretty much with an estimate of about 3 million people traveling. So 3 million people with their livestock, their herds, their cattle, and everything. It's not really traveling that fast. So I hope that gave you some insight into that. And then I think your next question was in reference to, could be one of the reasons why that they say stay away, not come near the women, because the women might become unclean at any given moment. And I would say, one, we got a lot of things that wasn't even an issue there in reference to them becoming unclean, because the Creator could make sure everybody be sanctified. The men had to be sanctified, then the women had to be sanctified. And if they're in a state of nidah, or at the term of just having a immediate child and stuff of that nature, it wouldn't have been proper. But one of the things we read about, and one of the things with episodes when I think it was Abimelech, when he took Sarah, that we don't know what plague pretty much was with the Egyptian that took Sarah, but we know the Philistine Abimelech, that when he took Sarah, that household, anybody, all the organs pretty much they shut down. In other words, you couldn't make no bowel movements. Everybody was stopped up. So just on him having her, getting married, deal with her as a wife. So at Mount Sinai, we read later on that the Creator made a covenant with everyone there. He will not make a covenant with somebody that's unclean at that time, because not only was the Israelites supposed to be sanctified, the mixed multitude was there. And it's so much of a great revelation at Mount Sinai at that particular time that no one, and this is what I would teach, everyone heard the voice of the Creator directly. Just like when he talked about Moses, Moses continued to hear it directly as a man speak to another man. But at Mount Sinai, those 3 million people, young and old, even though he was a wood, they heard the Creator speaking directly like a man speaking to another man on that level. So that revelation was so high and there that it would be no uncleanliness there, because Moses added that extra precaution, because if a man perhaps get close to the woman, whatever the case is, his beloved, his intended, perhaps he might have, even if you don't have a relationship directly, might have a nocturnal emission. So that's Moses' extra precaution, but we read that it was never, ever in an edict that the Creator had told Moses, from what we read in the beginning of that particular portion. I would say that no woman was unclean at that time. No one was unclean at that time. And it was 2 days to be sanctified. And if the woman was going through a nida, it would be more than that. So those are some of the areas I use to support that. And then 40 years later, Moses reminded them that he made a covenant with everyone that was there, young and old, foreign and domestic. So hopefully that answers your question in reference to the extra precaution Moshe Rabbeinu, the great teacher Moses, might have added that thing, because he never told the women to stay away from the men, but he told the men to stay away from the women, and that's what I emphasized before. All right, so hopefully I did you some justice in answering your question or at least at the best I can at this particular moment and stage. Now, I'd like to deal with this insights into the Sidra at hand, which is Mishpatim. And what's interesting about Mishpatim is that it has 53 laws in it. You know, when we're talking about law, statutes, and judgments, you know, you got 53 in it in this particular Sidra. And, you know, Mishpatim starts at 21st chapter of Exodus, first verse, and goes to 24th chapter inclusive, which is the 18th verse. So you got 53 law, statutes, and judgments in it. And not only you got the 53, you got 23 positive and 30 negative laws that's within this particular portion. But what is interesting is the way it starts off. And I just like to go over it just a little bit. Because I'm sure a lot of people heard it, and then a lot of the teachers, you know, spoke well concerning it. So I'm gonna try to bring out something just a little bit different than maybe what they might not focus on at the time. And it says, where Eli HaMishpatim Asher Tasim Lifnehem. Now, which is, you know, and these are the commandments or ordinances that you should put before them. One, most of us speak English. When do you start a sentence with "and"? Now, it's very rare cases where you can start a sentence with "and" in the English language, and much more begin a paragraph. And you say, that is one thing. So if you said, you know, if you said, and left off the word "and," the "YAH," and just said, these are the commandments that you should put before them, then that would be problematic. And why would that be problematic? Because now, and, you know, it belongs to the next, the previous chapter. We still might have a problem with that, with the "and," you know, if we don't investigate even deeper. But, and the last part of Mishpatim talks about an altar, making an altar before the Creator. So what "and" have anything to do with the altar? In that sense, you know, it seemed like "and" should have been, and these should have been closer to the 10 words or 10 commandments that was brought. Just something to consider and think about. Also, if you just left the "and" out and said, these are the judgments or ordinances or laws, depends how you translate Mishpatim, that you should just place before them, then do that means that what the Creator said at Mount Sinai is not as important as what he's saying, what Moses is telling us now? Then we got to think about that, because the Creator spoke at Mount Sinai. You know, I am, and then he talked about the images and taking his name in vain and etc. And you say, well, I don't see where he said place these before the people. Why would he start up and place these particular laws before the people? And then another thing, just to bring out just some points to be able to consider. Why would it be that if you end with talking about the altar, then why wouldn't we start off with talking about ritual observance? Why were we talking about civil observance? So those are some of the things that you might want to discuss. You know, as my friend and brother Chief Gershon has to say a lot. In the meantime, between time, when you get a chance amongst the various teachers or fellow, you know, brothers and sisters, you know, because these are important things to consider. The verbiage, the word that's used here. And one of the things is that when you say place, That means almost most people that might know certain books, study certain books called CHOKMAH rule. And that really means an arranged table, a set up table, or ordered table, or something that's a place, a set table. And it has a lot of what they call, laws that's explained, elaborate, most, various laws. But that means that it's not just enough just to place something on the table. You got to set it up where they could be able to grasp it. So hence, one of the things about setting it before them would imply not only do you just put it down, because we all could, in every congregation we go to, any house of worship we go to, we could just say, this is the book, the words are in it, you know how to read, here you go, and then leave. But it doesn't work like that, because given the book with the words in it, you got to place it in a particular format where they can digest it. Hence, you got people that need to expound on various subjects in Torah. So that's one of the things about, to be placed, before them. That you just don't hand it to them and leave off. That means it got to be arranged and set up and where they can actually gravitate it. It's almost like food on the table. A food, and the plate don't look good with the food on it. You might not take it, might not swallow it, might not even get involved with it. It looks messy. But if it has a certain appeal to you, then you'll grasp it. So I don't want to focus on this too much because there's so much stuff to talk about in this, and I want to get to the Haftarah. So I just draw a little bit in reference to that in the area. And also, the first thing it talks about is about slavery. And you say, slavery. Now that kind of correlates with, the Creator identify himself about not only he's a God, but he said, I brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So now you figure, if a people that were slaves, why would they want to hear anything to do with slavery at this point in juncture? And then it goes on to talk about if you buy a Hebrew slave, and most books translate as servant, but in Hebrew the word eved is the same. Slave, servant, that's all the same. Same word. All right, so Abadah's work, so you got a job to do. And in Hebrew, when they say Abadah, it's like work. So now it says, you buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. So, and if he come in by himself, he should go out by himself. If he be married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master give him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters. And if she shall go out by himself, and he shall go out by himself. But if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him to God, which is Elohim, which is the judge, basically, which is before God, the Creator, and shall bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost of his masters shall, doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with the oar, and he shall serve him forever. Now, there's a lot of things I like to bring out here, but I don't want to speak too long in this here, because a lot of areas I could go in. But one of the things is that if you came with a wife, we know already that was a custom back there in the East. That, but first thing we need to ask, how do you wind up buying a Hebrew servant? How's that? Everybody left wealthy, and yet Moses talking about this at this time when everybody left that spoiled Egypt. We all got money, and the mixed multitude must have some money. So if the mixed multitude got money, we got money, then Who going to sell themselves to work for somebody else? But just letting you know that that further down the line, you got to have a form of government and civil laws. You don't get to a spot and then say, okay, now we got to come up with some rules, how we're going to live, how we're going to function. You got to have the rules, the plan, the game plan, the constitution of your whatever endeavor you're going at ahead of the endeavor. Not get to the endeavor and then say, now I got to come up with a game plan. So this is talking like when we get into land, because one, we dwell in tents. And that's where we dwell in tents. Most people might say, okay, we dwell in huts, sukkos, booths, and stuff like that. Well, how much, well, for the most part, we dwell in tents in the wilderness. So we know when we talk about the doorposts, something that's stable. In Egypt, we had actual houses. In the desert, we didn't have actual houses. We might have had some booths and stuff from time to time, but mostly it's the tents, because that's what Bilam saw. And that's what we read about happening through the early part of 40 years, the tent of Dathan and Abiram and all that kind of stuff you hear about the tent. All right, so we basically was dwelling in tents at that time for the most part. But that's another discussion. But what's interesting is that this is saying that when you get in the land, some people are not going to stay wealthy. Some people are going to do some things that cause themselves some problems. You buy a Hebrew servant, and why would you buy him? Two conditions. Either he's broke, and he say, I need a job. I need to work for you. Or you happen to have a guy that committed a crime, but the crime he committed, as far as thievery or something to that nature, most cases dealing with thievery, is beyond his means to pay it back with the penalties. In this society here, if somebody robbed you, whatever the case is, and he's found guilty, he goes to prison, but there's no compensation made to the individual who took a loss. If he spent the money, he spent the money. If whatever the jewelry was, it's gone. Your satisfaction is that he's caught, he's guilty, now he's on the lockup. And now the state benefit, not the individual that been harmed. So this, that's another discussion as well, which I'm not gonna go there. But anyway, a Hebrew would be sold for a theft, and he served 6 years, and the 7th year he go free, plain as day. But let's deal with this next law right quick. And if a man sell his daughter to be a maid servant, she should not go out as the men servants do. If she please not her master who had espoused her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell unto a foreign people, he shall have no power, seeing he dealt deceitfully with her. And if he espouse her unto his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. And if he take another wife, her food, her raiment, and her conjugal rights shall he not diminish. And if he do not these 3 things unto her, then shall she go out for nothing without money. Now, rabbinically, those who follow rabbinical tradition, they say this is what a woman is supposed to get, period. Food, shelter, and the duties of management. Basically shelter, clothes is part of shelter as well. All right. So now, the difference is, when we're talking about this law at this particular time, not dealing directly with the rabbis deduce from this law is supposed to be in effect all the time. They deduce from this. So this is where they get it from. But here is basically, like most brothers explain, for a woman that was sold into a situation or came into a situation because of a debt. A father, because imagine a father, most men are tight on their daughters. They get rid of the son quicker than they get rid of the daughter, most men. Because it's just like daddy's baby. So not that they don't love their sons, but they're standing a little bit more with the son than they would with the daughter for most cases. Not saying it's good or that they do that way, or it's the best role. It just tends to be that kind of mentality most of the times. So imagine if a man sell his daughter to pay off his debt, or the daughter might volunteer to pay off his debt and say, look, Abba, I know you need this money, you owe so-and-so, I'll marry so-and-so. And that way he'll pay off your debt, and then we could get the family going again. And she might want to sacrifice herself for that, knowing that this clause exists. And this clause is here to safeguard her. Now, the difference is, if you have a woman that you normally marry and then it don't work out and you divorce her, and there's no money involved where, say, she go out free without money. This woman here was here to get into a relationship, marriage, to settle a debt. And so therefore, he would look at it different. It's not like I was swooning for her, I was really had eyes set for her. It's just a deal that I made. And therefore, she's in this because of a deal, not necessarily for love. So there's a lot of issues that's involved here, which I'm not going to go into now, but I just want to bring out that's only dealing with, and these are only dealing with Hebrew servants, because if it's a non-Hebrew, then we got other laws cover that. Those are different, which we talk about when we get to the Haftarah. We talk about men killing men and stuff like that. That's covered in this law. We talk about those who smite their parents. Today, as a train operator in New York, I used to hear so many teenagers, but in the summertime, I work nights, and a lot of them talk about, my mama say so-and-so, I slap her. And my father said, I punch him out. This is what kids say about their parents. Oh, they know not to bother me. They can't tell me nothing. But yet, you living under their roof, eating their food. And whether you're not, you still never have no jurisdiction. Like I said last week, and let me just explain about why I'm here. I said, the only commandment has a reason and a penalty that's there is the one about honoring your father and your mother. And they talk about that, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So it's focusing on your life, not their life. Whereas you read about taking the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold you guiltless that take his name in vain. You get a slight reason in there, a subtle reason, but you don't get what is the penalty. You just know you're going to be guilty. You're going to be held accountable. For some reason, you're going to be held accountable. Now, you could swear by God's name to do something and don't do it. You still held accountable. So making it vain means something make it worthless, because some people swear too quick. So, but we don't know what will be the actual penalty. But with the fourth commandment, with the fifth commandment is your life. The Shabbat, which is the fourth, remember this Shabbat day to keep it holy. For in 6 days the Lord made the heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in the midst, and rested on the seventh day. And then it said, therefore, should be, free from work on that particular day. No penalty, just a slight reason. And so therefore, you always got to wonder, why would he get to that area there when he gets to the fifth command of father and mother, honor in that area, and stress a penalty that will cost you your life, not theirs, your life. That's, like I said, we could, discuss that further in the future amongst different people. But we had a lot of respect for parents in my time. Matter of fact, you didn't want, if somebody knew your parent and seen you doing something, if you say your so-and-so son, you wondering how they know. And if they know your mother or your father, because if word get back when you're doing something wrong, they'd tell your mother and father. And back then, if they didn't lay hands on you, the person that was telling your mother and father, they'd say, well, why didn't you whip their behind and then bring them to me? That's what they used to say coming up. Now these days, if you touch somebody's kid, you got to fight the whole family. It does, you know, and things just changed for the worse. But that's the kind of respect. Even cursing, I mean, you're talking about kidnapping, laws for beating servants. Now, when it says in the 20th verse, I just want to touch on a couple of things here. If a man smite his bondsman or his bondswoman with a rod, and he die on his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. Now, what needs to be explained here is that this ain't talking about a Hebrew servant now. This is considering a non-Hebrew. And I wanted to focus on that because you're, as a Hebrew, even though you're paying off a debt, working on a debt, sold for your debt, you're never another person's property other than the Creator. You belong to the Creator. So therefore, it's talking about somebody that's not non-Hebrew servant. All right, and that's what it said, his money. All right. I spoke on this here, and interesting. I just want to touch on it about women. You know, I mean, the men fighting, then a woman lose a child. All right. Then it goes on to say that so that her fruit depart, and yet no harm follow, he shall surely be fined according as the woman husband shall lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. Because the husband himself might be extreme. But what's is interesting here, which is a major topic, I spoke on it at length when I did this particular series, that's why I wanted to touch on it now, is that one, it talks about the husband making the decision, not the woman. Yes, she's carrying the child. It's about how it looks into the husband's feeling, not the woman's feeling. It only talks about if the woman died in an episode there, then it's a whole nother dimension. But what's noticed is that it's a husband's decision and how he feel, and what the judges determine that is just. So that could take a lot of discussion among various places too. You say, well, what the woman got to say in this matter? And then we got this law, lex talionis, which is talking about eye for eye, foot for foot, life for life, all that kind of stuff. Burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. We got that. We know right then and there that in most societies of ancient times, you had laws that meant just that. Eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a burning for a burning. Life for life still exists across the board. But that's the only one that exists pretty much across the board, even in our way of life. But the eye for an eye, and I spoke on that as much too, because we really consider compensation more so. And that's why they mostly determine, because an eye for an eye, you got two good eyes. This guy only have one eye. So when I spoke on it before, he knocked your eye out, then you got one eye. You knock his eyes out, he got no eyes. You're half blind, but you made him full blind. So now, we got to talk about where's the balance with compensation. Suppose he's an artist, he works with his hands, a carpenter, and you cause him to lose his hand by not paying attention. He's a carpenter. You're not a carpenter. You're a wealthy landowner. You just sit back. So you lose your hand, you become handicapped as a wealthy landowner, but it doesn't equal what he do, because he made his living as being a carpenter, and he need both his hands. While as you, as a wealthy landowner, I lost a hand. So that's why we talk about, we got to say, well, what is real justice? I just want to bring those particular points out. Then we get some a little bit further. It talks about witnesses. Talk about loaning. Yeah, talk about bestiality. Let me just back up just a little bit. I'd like to go into 22nd just a little bit, and if I can. The 22nd chapter, it says in the first verse, if a thief be found breaking in and be smitten so that he die, there shall be no blood guiltiness for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood guiltiness for him. He shall make restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft be found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall pay double. Now, this is a very controversial verse in scriptures amongst various congregations. What do it mean if the sun is risen upon him? That's one of the things. I mean, and I heard different of opinions. The one I like to share, which is more accepted, is that you can identify him as the daytime, and he's breaking in at night. Most thieves would break in at, in the daytime, not so much at night. We was an agrarian society. We plant and we had cattle, we had shepherds and sheep and, cattle and stuff like that. So in the daytime, most people will be working outside the house. In the daytime, you in the field, you've taking care of the flock. So there's very few people will be in the house in the daytime. So that's one area to look at. At night, you're supposed to be sleeping. We didn't work at night. The majority of us stayed home. So now at night, you don't know what his intentions is. You just know that somebody's coming in making a disturbance. And they ought to know that you are home. So now, if you slay him at night, because the tunneling in, that's the term he actually used, tunneling in, he's doing damage, creating damage. So one of the things about him creating damage is that it's destructive, it's violent. Anytime you tear anything open, it's a violent act. So you don't know how far they're going to go. You feel threatened, your family's there, so you slay them at night. In the daytime itself, if you see them, you pretty much identify the difference between Torah and then you got to, and I employ people to discuss this very thoroughly. Nowhere in the Torah, and I'm going to say it again, because I know I should get a lot of questions on it. There's nowhere in the Torah where you're supposed to slay someone over your property. Now, if you call your wife your property, that's another story, but I'm just saying over your property. Nowhere in Tanakh you slay people over your property. Where you have a stand your ground laws, especially in the state I'm in, and a few other states, which is different. Now, if it seems like if it's a threat, that the property alone is not all that's going to be involved, but also you, where you're going to do some harm to you, then you have a right to defend yourself and slay them. But property itself, and you could do the research throughout the book pretty much, there's really no law saying that a person supposed to either risk their life or take a life over property in the scriptures. Now, this I'm only dealing with scriptures. I ain't dealing with the laws of the land here and there and stuff like that. But if you feel threatened, then that's one thing. Now, suppose the thief come in, you caught him, and you have a spear. The thief don't have anything. And it's in the daytime. You can see him. You got a spear. And the thief, you say, all right, now you caught. You know, he said, he go to run. You come after him with the spear to apprehend him, talk about a citizen's arrest. Then that changes that in dynamics. And the reason I wanted to focus on some of these things, because some things don't be as simple as we might gloss over. So now that thief, you come after him with the spear. Oh, he came to get a few pieces of jewelry, maybe some gold you had stashed over there, whatever, you know, and get up out of there. You saw him, so now he's not taking anything. He running. And if he did have it on him and he's trying to run, you come after him with the spear. He is a man that's equipped to be able to take the spear and slay you. Now the tables turn. You was trying to get him because he took your property, and he was defending his life. You wasn't defending your life. You're defending your property. So I like for everybody to discuss this. And I could go on with a lot of different dynamics, but just to discuss it, and then see what you have lined up within the scriptures in reference to that area there. And we talk about borrowing and everything like that. We know that, but I'll just skip on down to the 18th chapter, 18th verse, 22nd chapter. Whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death. I mean, bestiality is off. That's a death penalty. But you have people that believe in doing all that kind of stuff. But it's a death penalty. We skip on down here to the 23rd chapter, 23rd chapter. I just want to skip through that just a little bit. 23rd chapter, it talks about in the 10th verse, it talks about 6 years thou shalt sow thy land and gather in the increase thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and life follow, that the poor of thy people may eat. And what they leave, the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner, thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. 6 days thou shalt do thy work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest. Thy ox and thine ass may have rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. Now here you got reason and for observing that Shabbat. All right. And it said, in all things that I have said unto you, take ye heed, and make no mention of the names of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. Some brothers take this to the stream because we speak English, but that's another story. I'm not going to even focus on that. I want to go into the 3 times in the year thou shalt keep a feast unto me. All right. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as commanded thee, and at the time appointed in the month of Abib. For in it thou camest forth out of Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labor, which thou sowest in the field, and the feast of ingathering at the end of the year, when thou gatherest in thy labor out of the field. 3 times in the year, all males shall appear before the Lord God. That means in place he chose. All right. You got another thing about an angel leading the way in that particular verse. I just want to read this here and bring out some thoughts. 20th verse, it says in 23rd chapter, 20th verse, I sent an angel before thee to keep thee by the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Take heed of him and hearken unto his voice. Be not rebellious against him, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed hearken unto his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thy enemies, an adversary to thy adversaries. All right, now, and then 23rd verse, it says, for my angel shall go before thee and bring thee into the Amorites and to the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. I will cut them off. All right, now, the first part, if the angel is supposed to lead and do something, what he's doing, trying to judge us too. If he say, I will not, and the angel will not pardon. Do we answer to the angel for his judgment? Or is the judgment belongs to the creator? Or if this angel is Moshe at one point, and then the angel that was ahead with Joshua, you know, when Moshe passed, being angel, being a messenger. So this is some of the dynamics, you know, that, you know, you should discuss in depth. And I'm going down to 24th, the last part of that. And it says that, and unto Moses he said, come up unto the Lord, thou, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel, and worship ye afar off. And Moses alone shall come near unto the Lord, but they shall not come near. All right. Neither shall the people go up with him. And Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the ordinances, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord has spoken, we will do. All right. Now, that's what they say here. All right. Now, let's go down and let me check it out in Hebrew here for one moment. All right. In the 7th verse, 24:7, in the 7th verse, they use the term, let me skip it over here. Okay, I just want to read it just like it has it here. All right. Might have give me some new glasses here. But anyway, use it Nishma and Nishma, now say Nishma, that's why we're Nishma. So now say Nishma, which means I will hear. I mean, I would do. Now say means I would do. Now say Nishma. I would do and I would hear. Now, anyway. Okay. Yeah, just make sure. Yeah. Now say when Nishma. All right, now say Nishma, that means they were here. That's the 24:7 is a verse that you go always remember. That's not a good way to go into a contract. But that's the only place in the Tanakh, that we say that we don't have to understand what the Creator wants us to do. All we got to do is do what the Creator wants us to do, and we listen and analyze it later. We were focused on understanding it later. So it's more important for us to do what the Creator say do, and then instead of trying to analyze and digest it and see if it's palatable for me. So this is the only place in the scriptures where it's actually spoken on in that particular fashion. Every place else is always like you said, we will hear, we would do, we will hear, we would do. This is the only place where it says we will do, now say when Nishma, and we will hear. Only place in scriptures. And what I'm saying is it's not in the chronological order in that area there, but I just want to bring out that that particular portion in there about that. This was that part of the contract, and And this is actually, all this takes place actually before God spoke the 10 words, you know, and also when it's instance, Yithro ends with the altar, Mashpeah, you know, the altar, how to build off an altar. And we start talking about judges and, you know, judgments and different civil laws. It's a tradition that most courts be close near the sanctuary, wherever that be. Everybody sat around the tabernacle in the wilderness, but later on it was around the Beit HaMikdash. So the most high courts was around that area there. But I'm gonna stop right here when they talk about the elders, you know, having a revelation and stuff like that. That's before my time Torah. And you might want to go over it some more, because one of the interesting things is that when they sat down to eat, you know, at the time, that in the 11th verse of the 24th chapter, it says, and upon the nobles of the children of Israel, he laid not his hand, and they beheld God and did eat and drink. Now you say, okay, what do that mean? You're in the presence of the Creator. You eating and drinking. Was it all right or not all right? And if it's all right, why would it say God laid not his hands, like if it is a potential of you doing something wrong? So those are some things I hope you got something out of that little small brief synopsis I try to highlight in Mishpatim. Like I said, it's 53 laws, statutes, and judgments within this particular portion, 23 positive, 30 negative. So now I'm gonna go in the book of Jeremiah just a little bit, because the main thing was talking about servants in the book of Jeremiah. So that'll be Jeremiah 34th chapter, 8 to 22. And then they're gonna finish in the 33rd chapter, 25 and 26. So we're gonna go first 34:8 of Jeremiah. Now a little backdrop is that this also happened when, you know, they made, well, we'll get to it, as you can pick it up from there.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 34, verse 8. The word that came unto Jeremiah from the Lord. Hold on for 1 second, Nasik.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you clear.
All right. Jeremiah chapter 34, verse 8. The word that came unto Jeremiah from Yehudah. After that, the king Zedekiah had made a covenant with all the people that were at Jerusalem to proclaim liberty unto them, that every man should let his manservant and every man his maidservant, being a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, go free, that none shall make bondmen of them, even of a Jew his brother. And all the princes and all the people hearkened, that had entered into the covenant to let everyone his manservant and everyone his maidservant go free, and not to make bondmen of them anymore. They hearkened and let them go.
All right, we'll stop right there before we go to the 11th verse. All right, one of the things is that this time we read about earlier about within the 5th month, but also we heard that they made a proclamation around the 7th month. Traditionals put it at Yom Kippur, which is the time of the Yovel. So when we check and make the correlation between the book of Jeremiah and this particular episode that's going on here, that during the Yovel, that's when you count the Jubilee, and that's also when you count the 10th day of the 7th month is the time you also count the sabbatical year. Now, a person do 6 years, that don't and just to be clear, because it's a sabbatical year, he may not be working, but he might still be indebted for that sabbatical year. Where when you get to the Yovel, if it was like in that particular time, say the guy supposed to serve for 6 years, and the Yovel come in the 3rd year, it says all manner of release. So it's a little different here, and just think about it a little bit more. But here it is that we know we kept the Yovel in the land before the Babylonian captivity. We never really kept it afterwards, but we kept it before, because that's why you had these double dates and stuff like that within the prophecy. But one of the things that they're talking about, Hebrew servants, your own kind, your own people, as opposed to a guy that might have been say a Moabite, or somebody that might have been a Syrian or something, or Egyptian. Now those guys, they will keep them as family heritage. Your kids can inherit your servants, like Abraham servants was inherited by Isaac. And I believe most of the servants that was that Isaac had was inherited by Esau, more so than Jacob, because Jacob had to come back with a whole new crew. But normally the family servant stays within the family, and that's one of the things too. When those that's coming up soon on we just not too long left about Hanukkah, Herod, those that studied the Hanukkah, that's Chief Who's brought out, was actually belonged to the household and servant of the Hasmonean family. So it's like he's gonna be passed down till he rebelled later. But anyway, they made an agreement, and this one of the things, and they swore by the name of the Creator on that particular time that this is what they was doing. And that's because they try to avoid the Babylonian conquest. But read from the 11th verse.
Verse 11 reads, "But afterwards they turned and caused the servants and the handmaids whom they had let go free to return, and brought them into subjection for servants and for handmaids. Therefore the word of Yahuwah came to Jeremiah from Yahuwah, saying, Thus saith
Before we
Yahuwah."
Before we go to the 13th, what it is, they must have learned anything from the Exodus. Pharaoh said, and the people say, what have we done? How we let the Israelites leave from serving us? And we got a law right after Mount Torah. Right after that, how to deal with a servant, and more especially that of a Hebrew servant. So we disregard all about the Exodus by violating this particular law. So the Exodus didn't mean anything. So we talk about God's great deliverance in the Exodus and how we were servants. And the Creator identified himself as not as the creator of the world, but the liberator and emancipator of a particular people, and said, you are that people and you are where I brought you from. I brought you from a place that you don't want no parts of. And here we agreed to let people go, took an oath before the Creator, and everybody agreed. And then can you imagine Israelites coming back and saying, I'll bring you back home. Back home? I thought you freed me. Boy, we can imagine the so-called sharecropping and all that kind of stuff in the rural South with our people in America. And because people was free, some people had to be freed 3 different times. Brought their freedom, got locked up, got caught up in the net, had to buy it again. And some people had to run several times before, and they still had to wait until Juneteenth, when people had to let people know, hey, you're free, man. And first thing you need to know is what the word means, because they wasn't even accustomed to that. And where we're going to go, they wasn't accustomed to that. Or what I'm leaving with, just to close my back, and I help build this up. What I'm going to do? I need a job. I need to eat. I got a family. But so when we think about how cruel slavery was here, what can be more cruel is when your own kind do that to you. That's more cruel. That's more heartbreaking. Now I'm picking up from 13.
Verse 13 reads, Thus saith Yahuwah, the God of Israel, I made a covenant with your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, saying, At the end of 7 years, ye shall let go every man his brother that is a Hebrew, and have been sold unto thee, and have served thee 6 years. Thou shalt let him go free from thee. But your fathers hearken not unto me, neither incline their ear. And you will now turn and had done that which is right in mine eyes, and proclaiming liberty every man to his neighbor, and ye have made a covenant before me in the house whereon my name is called. But ye turn and profane my name, and cause every man his servant and every man his handmaid, whom ye had let go free at their pleasure, to return, and ye brought them into subjugation to be unto you for servants and for handmaids. Therefore, thus saith Yahuwah, ye have not hearkened unto me to proclaim liberty, every man to his brother, and every man to his neighbor. Behold, I proclaim for you a liberty, saith Yahuwah, unto the sword, unto the pestilence, and unto the famine, and I will make you a horror unto all the kingdoms of the earth. And now,
right there before we go to 18. Before we go to 18. All right. Now, here it is. They said we made a proclamation. We swore, this is what we're going to do. And that's taking the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And the Creator said, okay, I'm going to show you. You wouldn't free them, but I'm going to free you from me. Free you from me means that your protection, your shield, your lifeline is severed, isolated, and then it's going to be bad for you at this particular time. And that is when the Creator cuts you off from himself for even a moment, that's like an eternity, even for a moment. But this is what happened. But if you do this, if you so cruel to your own, and you don't recognize the Exodus, you don't recognize the Creator either in all this life. Because purpose of the Exodus was to make himself known to Pharaoh and to the nation, to the world. So you don't regard that. So we're going to pick that up from the 18th verse and read to the 22nd.
Verse 18. And I will give the men that have transgressed my covenant, that have not performed the words of the covenant which they made before me, when they cut the calf in twain and passed between the parts thereof, and the princes of Judah, and the princes of Jerusalem, the officers and the priests, and all the people of the land that pass between the parts of the calf. And I will even give them into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of them that seek their life. And their dead bodies shall be for food unto the fowls of the heaven, and to the beasts of the earth. And Zedekiah...
That means they're going to be just like the piece that you cut up. They're going to be just like that. And the thing when Abraham went to a deep sleep, but he had to covenant between the pieces. Before he went into a deep sleep, he had to keep the birds of prey away from the pieces. Now, here it is, and it was talking about your children will be in a land, in a land that's not theirs for 400 years, and then God was going to judge that nation. If the Creator going to judge them for mistreating us, how much more us mistreating ourselves, mistreating other people like ourselves? So that brings back the memory of the pieces that Abraham had in that deep sleep, in the deep, the epiphany that he had. All right, 21.
Verse 21 reads, And Zedekiah, king of Judah, and his princes will I give into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of them that seek their life, and into the hand of the king of Babylon's army that are gone up from you. Behold, I will command, saith Yahuwah, and cause them to return to this city, and they shall fight against it, and take it, and burn it with fire, and I will make the cities of Judah a desolation without inhabitant. Hallelujah.
30. We got two more verses. 33, the two verses, 25 and 26. Because Haftarah always try to end on a good note. That's why it's not always in everything in relationship to the Sidra. It got some other points that brought up in our history, but they try to make a habit of going on a good note. So anything good, they try to end off on a good note. Because the word, the Haftarah means the finish or the conclusion of something. So we want to conclude on a good note because we want you to go to sleep with a nightmare.
So we're going to Jeremiah 33, verse what?
Yeah, 25 and 26.
25 and 26. It reads,
Yeah, those verses.
Thus saith Yehudah, if my covenant be not with day and night, if I have not appointed the ordinances of heaven and earth, then will I also cast away the seed of Jacob and of David my servant, so that I will not take of his seed to be rulers over the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, for I will cause their captivity to return, and will have compassion of them, on them. Hallelujah.
Right. That's the end of the Haftarah. Now, one of the things is talk about different covenants. Covenants with the heavens, day and night, and also we talk about the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, covenant between the pieces, that kind of covenant, and the redemption, the promise he made, period, with the people, in Mount Torah, and Mount Sinai, so it's a lot of times, sometimes they refer to as the circumcision, that covenant, because the covenant was based on the land. And we know right then and there that though drama going to hit us, we're going to be all right in the final analogy. I always say, we win in the end. I just hope I'll be around to see it, but we win in the end. We got a guarantee. So when people look for, getting together and say, okay, we need to just drop our differences. Well, I say that's what makes us. My difference. If we all had the exact same idea, we can't go too far. Now we can have the same agenda, but if you look just like me and I look just like you, I ask you what you think and you think exactly like I think, then that's a limited conversation and an adventure. But it's your angle of looking at certain things and what you got that you endow with. The Creator don't have to repeat miracles. The Creator don't have to repeat each man. When you make a coin, every coin from the die that they cast is exactly like the die. The Creator made one man, Adam, and one woman, Kawa, Eve, and all the people that come from them look different. Can you imagine that? Now, one looked exactly like the other one. So that shows you the greatness of the Creator and the uniqueness also of the nation of Israel, that we're supposed to be like a speckled bird, a bouquet of flowers. So everyone has something to contribute. We had 12 tribes. There's a reason we had 12 tribes, 12 different characteristics, and those together made up the nation of Israel. So, and it's what I bring to the table, what you bring to the table. I need you, you need me for what we have to offer each other. And that's the purpose of being grateful. You only could be grateful for something that you really don't have and that you could use. So with that, I hope you got something out of what I said, and any mistakes been my own. And I hope I addressed all the other questions. And like I said, bring it back to the various locations.
Hallelujah.
I'm strong. Shabbat.
Torah about Nasik. Thank you once again for what you do and the effort that you put forward. Hallelujah. May the Most High God bless you. May the Most High God bless each and every one of you. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.